Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our session today. This is going to be kind of a full morning. I hope we can get through all of what I want to cover, but it's all about the using the inventory module and that combined with purchase orders. And we'll look at who can use the module, the inventory, what kind of required steps have to be activated in order to use it. Actually generate a couple of a purchase order or review an existing one. Actually, we'll walk through the part usage concept to update things, and then we'll wrap up. And this is where we may have to cut, some time to if we're running long some of the related reports. And then on Thursday, kind of switch gears, and we're going to talk about two really, really important concepts. At least I think they are. One is finished goods, and the other one is finished goods inventory. And the basic concept is that you're going to have clients at times that are going to want some pricing based on that parameters, maybe a certain number of widgets over a course of 12 months. And you want to base the pricing on that concept. So the finished goods inventory and finished goods, putting things into inventory and then pulling things from inventory is a means of facilitating that. So we'll talk about that at the beginning. We do have to split some of our discussion between the two different databases because they're slightly different in that regard. And we'll wrap up on Thursday with some of the reports. So I'm going to change my view here just 1 second. Okay, Linda, can you confirm that you control?
Yes, I can see control.
Okay. All right. So first of all, who can use the inventory module? Basically, it is an optional feature. So you have to first determine whether or not your system does or does not include the inventory module. And the way you're going to do that is to go up. You can determine that quite easily by going up to help and then about control. And then about halfway down, you're going to see modules. And if you come over to the word expand and expand that, this includes a list of all of the different modules that are active in your system. And if you see inventory, like I've got it highlighted here, that simply says that it's in your system. And if it's in your system, you can use it, period. Okay. If it's not in your inventory does not show up, then, as I said, it's an optional module, and you would need to reach out to the sales department, perhaps to ask questions about it, find out what the pricing is related to using the inventory module, and so the sales department can help with that. You can reach out to them at sales@cyrus.com is the best way to do that. Now, if you have the module, if you have it, it has to be active. Okay, in other words, it has to be designated that you're going to use it. So the way you're going to do that is this now is up here and under production, and then we're going to look at production setup. And then under the general options tab over here in the first column, what you're looking for is this first check mark must be checked. So if it's not checked in your system, you have it. If it's in the modules like we talked about, and you would simply have to edit this list and put a check mark on this first item, and then you're good to go as far as enabling the use of the inventory module. So the basic concepts might be helpful to just kind of set the stage a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Basic concept is that you're going to create a purchase order, perhaps to more likely involving material. So you're going to create a purchase order that you need to purchase some additional materials. It might be print vinyl, it might be laminates, might be acrylic, just any material type stuff. Now, yes, the inventory module can be used for labor, it can be used for equipment, but predominantly I perceive it in the context of materials, and that's going to be the focus of our conversation today. So you create a purchase order where you order X amount of a certain material, and that purchase order goes off to the vendor. And then when it arrives, you're going to bring it into inventory. So if you had 10 sheets of something and you had ordered 5 additionals, then the number of sheets would increase to 15 or so. So you're going to create a purchase order, receive the material, put it into inventory, and then as you work progressive orders that may use that material, then the part usage you're going to pull those some of those items out. This actually just says that you consumed them. So your purchase order to put it in, to order it, put it in the inventory, and then you're going to pull it out as you use it. So that's the kind of the concept behind. So now we've talked about purchase orders, and they too have to be activated. So we go up to setup and system setup, then down about 2/3 of the way where it says purchase orders, bills, receiving documents, etc. You want to make sure that I'm going to edit this so you can see it a little bit better. The 2 that we're interested in that have to be checked is enabling receiving documents and enabling the use of purchase orders. Okay. So just make sure that those 2 check marks are on, and then you're good to go to use to use purchase orders. I'm just looking at my notes as I go along here, so bear with me. Excuse me. So setting up I want to switch gears and setting up parts to track in inventory. I got to get my notes out where I can grab them here in just a second. I'm trying to hold a notebook and it's not working with the flip. So just give me 30 seconds here. That's better. Now I can. So setting up an inventory, to track parts. So there's 2 ways you can do that. You can do it at the part level, and you can do it at the part category level. And I'll kind of touch on both of those options. So to set up a single part for inventory purposes, we'll go to setup and pricing setup, and then all pricing. Then over on the left-hand side, we're going to choose part setup. And again, I want to limit my focus to materials. So then in the second column, we'll expand materials. And then for illustration purposes, I'm going to come down to roll stock and expand it. Then I want to expand print material or print vinyl. And that's the one that we're going to focus on. And to do that, I'm going to choose this first one, the standard 10-ounce print vinyl material. And so now what we need to do is, I'm going to edit that so we can see it a little bit better. First thing that we want to do, since we're going to do it at the part level, we need to remove, if it existed, we need to remove the check mark on use default categories. But we want to, excuse me, we want to turn on the check mark that says track costs if it's not already set. And we want to turn on track inventory if it's not already set. So turn off the default one and make sure that these other two are turned on. So then we're going to go to the accounting tab here. And we have to make sure that these items are set, all three of them. The first one, if you're already doing tracking of costs without the inventory, that one's probably already set. So you have to make sure that the check mark is there. You have to make sure that over here in the expense account that you have the appropriate expense account chosen for that. Then the two that are the important ones are the accrue costs and to track inventory have to be on. And on this one, we also have to choose an inventory account. And I simply have chosen the the orders due, which is the most logical one to do that. So now we're going to go out to the inventory tab. And in the inventory tab, this is where you have items that are that you've put in the inventory. Okay, so for this particular part, the standard 10-ounce vinyl, its cost basis is $320 and a penny. Its unit cost or unit is in rolls. We don't have any kind of alert level set for purposes of reordering. I don't have any that are billed at this point. I don't have any that I've received. But you can see that I've really not been doing this religiously at all, just for demo purposes. So it says that we've actually got 24 rolls of this, and all of them are available. So this is the essence of setting up a part for purposes of using, being able to use the inventory. Now I'm going to cancel this, and then we'll use a different one to kind of talk through the doing something at the category level. So to do that, I want to go up to flat stock, just so there were somewhere completely different. And then I'm going to choose acrylic, expand acrylic. And then I want to look at that one part that's there. Now, to do this at the category level, we want to make sure that it says use category defaults. And then again, we want to make sure that the track cost is on, the track inventory is on. Again, we want to review the accounting parameters, make sure that all three are set, and that we have in the two spots that need it, make sure that the appropriate account is chosen. And then come back out to the inventory, and very similarly, we see how it's identified, what its unit cost is, $60 and a penny. It's by the sheet. I didn't set any kind of alerts, and some of the key items there for purposes of knowing what you have billed or what's been billed, what you've received, what you have on hand, how many may have been reserved for future because of orders that are in process, leaving how many are still available, for use. Now, let me just take a sip of coffee here just a second. The accounting module influences some aspects of the of using inventory, and our discussion is based on that we're not using the accounting module, And in a few places, as I continue some of my comments, where there is influence, if you are using the accounting module, I'll try to articulate when that might exist. So now I want to close this, and I want to start talking how to use purchase orders, to request and to receive parts in inventory. So to do that, I'm going to go up to new and new purchase orders, and that's where we'll start. And I'm also going to open an existing purchase order so that we can kind of see, flip back and forth as we're going through some of this discussion. Hang on a second, I need to open this one. Now we'll come back. So as you're going through, you're going to enter the name of the vendor, just like you would do it if it was a customer that you're going to sell goods and services to. Put the name in, make sure that it doesn't, conflict. Put in a description of how you might be using that vendor. Now, the key thing to understand is that a vendor can also be a client. Okay, so if I want to, let's go back over to the one that I had here. I had a customer that I created, for other purposes, that I simply called CyrSkills, and then I created another one where they're a vendor. Okay, so I'm using it in both regards. Now, when you're creating a vendor, the items over here, this one says the initial status on when you're saving a purchase order. There are three choices. Those three choices are that you're requesting an item, it's been approved, and it's been ordered. Those are the three kind of life cycle steps, so to speak, of creating a purchase order. So your internal policy may say, I need to submit a request for a certain number of items of this particular material. Then as it goes through your process, then it might next say, okay, it's approved. And then that it's actually been placed on order. So you would simply choose which one of these you want your process to start at. In some real simple cases, it can just simply say it's ordered, period, and not utilize these other two steps. Okay, so we'll just do that one. These two fields here, the check or the default for order and the line, those are optional. But care is you have to be careful in how they're used. I'm just going to limit my comment to that. Coming back here to the new vendor. Now I got my act together. Okay. So enter the company name, make sure that it exists. Pricing level and all this is really not relevant unless they're also going to be, you're also going to be selling goods and services to them. So I've just selected the vendor. The company tab, you're going to complete it just exactly the same way that you've always done that. The vendor tab, this is where it starts to depart from the settings of a customer or that you're selling to. Just put a check mark if you're going to work with this vendor on a 1099 basis. If not, leave it blank. What your payment terms are with that vendor, perhaps on a net 30, net 15, net 45, and what your default payment method will be. And again, those are optional fields that are not mandatory. And then over here to the right, you can enter what your shipping method will be, if any. It may be none, and you might use one of the carriers. The vendor may give you their tax ID number. You would enter it here. And if you have your own account number with that vendor, then you would put it in this area here, my account number. Now, down in this area, this is where we start to build what it is that we're going to purchase from them. So to start that process, you would say, I want to add, and come down to materials, come down to a roll stock, for example, and to print vinyl. And let's say that we're going to add that. And then say, okay, maybe that's all we're going to do at this point. And then you would begin to put in here if it's appropriate, if you're going to use the part number or the SKU number. This is going to identify the part name that you're going to order it from, from the vendor. Barcode, if any, cost per roll. Here you can enter the cost, and then you can specify the unit of measure. Now, the kind of a note here or comment is that when you enter the cost in the unit here, it does not change the actual part cost, in the part itself. And then stocking, the stocking units, that's this one. So it's in $320 per roll, and we've set it up. It's an active part. Let me flip pages here just a second.
Paul, we have a question when you get a
Okay.
chance.
Yeah,
You ready?
Good. Yeah.
Okay. This is from Andrea, and I will unmute you so that you can ask your question. Go ahead, Andrea.
Okay, so I typed it up, but I can just explain it as well. So we don't use the accounting module in control, which is what we're talking about. And so I'm just wondering, like, whenever I get a packing slip from the supplier that we've ordered from, I just manually come into control and go to the part setup and update the inventory part. So do I need to be creating a purchase order instead of doing that every time?
You don't have to, Andrea. You could formalize the process a little bit more by doing a purchase order when you're ordering material. The advantage of doing that is that by putting it into inventory and keeping track of it, control will then keep track of your consumption of that material from everything that you have ordered, so that you know what the system will know what's on hand. And if you're running low on something and you have a new order that comes along and you don't have enough of a certain material, the system is going to aid you in that regard using the inventory.
Okay.
But you certainly do not need. Go ahead.
We have been using the inventory module for about probably 3 or 4 months. We're just we're figuring that we're not we must not be using it properly or to everything that it can do, just because we're finding that it's saying that we're out of material, and even though we're not, if that makes sense.
Then I think you really need to do a good solid review of just exactly what you have and how that compares to what's in control.
Okay.
And then, you know,
just to keep it accurate, you would recommend doing a manual purchase order, coming in and doing one for the packing slips we receive?
Yes, I certainly do.
Okay. And then moving forward from that, my production team is actually the one that orders the material because they know what we're out of. Is there a way easily in control to see kind of what jobs are coming due that we don't have material for?
Andrea, because of time constraints, and I'm not 100% certain, I am going to suggest that we take that question offline and reach out to one of the consulting teams or join one of the other webinars that is strictly a Q&A type thing. I apologize, but we're tight with time today, and I'd rather not try to divert away. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep, sounds good. Thanks.
All right. So if we were to order a part, and we just put that in, then if we come down to view, we can view the part down here. So we can actually click that and then look at the part just the way you have always done, okay? And we can make this vendor a preferred vendor, so that would be the first one to pop up if you're going to continue to use them. Now, what I want to do next is actually look at a purchase order, and I'm going to do that by looking at one that I've already got open. So if you're building a purchase order, you can I need to open this other one up so we can kind of go back and forth. This is one that I've already created, so it's for this vendor, and I've used it a couple of times. You have, just like in a regular order, you got items, but the items is a vendor versus items where you're selling goods and service to the customer is quite different, okay? So here, you have different ways of creating a purchase order as far as what is in that purchase order. So if I put in the company name up here, or the vendor's name, so the system, I got to spell it right. So now, as you begin to create the purchase order, you've got items. Okay, you're going to order 1 item, 2 items, 3 items, 4, a dozen, okay? And the choices of the type of item is what is in this first column. So it can be none. It can just be, think of it as a blank line, okay? Then for a vendor, you can also create a brand new part right from scratch, just like you would have outside of the purchase order. So you can create a brand new part and go through and create all of the different parameters that you would have had you done it up under system setup in parts or the production setup. You could create a catalog for a vendor, and that catalog, think of it as a list of things that you regularly would purchase from them. you can select a particular part and put it in as a purchase order item, okay? So first of all, I'm going to choose the catalog. And now I said, what out of that catalog do I want to order? So for this vendor that I've set up, I've got essentially 4 different items, 4 different parts that I typically order from this particular vendor. So here on this purchase order, I might say that I want to pick the standard vinyl. That's the one that I need to order. And then I would come across and begin to enter the what I'm ordering. Okay, so I might order a 2 of that item. Okay, and it shows me that the build item, unless you're using the accounting module, you really don't even need to think about it. It says I don't have any on that I have received at this point. I don't have any that I'm waiting on. Now it picked up the unit cost of the roll, and it's telling me, because I want to order 2, what the total is. And you also see that down at the bottom. So now if I wanted to order something else in addition to that, I could either take it out of the catalog, or I could go right straight to a particular part. And then I could choose the down arrow, and I can browse my parts. Pick one here, just pick that one. And I need, 1 sheet of that. Let's make it 5 sheets, okay? I don't have any in stock. It's by the sheet. Its unit cost is $120, but 5 of them is $600. Now the cumulative cost for the purchase order is $1,200. And I could just keep adding line item after line item until I have gotten everything in this purchase order that I want, okay? Want to add a note, I can just choose that, and then I can type my note, okay? Just whatever you would want to, to put in there. When you're done, you would do the same thing that you do with a purchase order, or with a regular order. Couple of things that, just to kind of digress a little bit. Sometimes particularly with roll material, the system consumes it in linear feet, but you buy it by the roll, okay? So if we look at this part, you can create additional units in that part. So if we choose this one, I want to do it at the side. You can use the units section, the units UDF of a part, and you can create alternate consumption, okay? So basically you can say, I'm going to buy this particular item by the roll, which is what you're talking about here. And that's how I'm going to manage it in the inventory section. This is how I'm going to see it. If I look at the part, I'm going to see it in terms of the length in the unit is feet, and then the additional units allows you to make the transition from a roll to the consumption, where it says, in essence, one roll is 150 feet long, and then this is the alternate. So one roll equals 150 feet. It just gives you a means of managing from an inventory perspective how you actually are going to buy it. But if the consumption is slightly different in control, then the unit section for that particular part will allow you to make that transition so that the system can manage it. Now, just about done here. I'm going to just looking at other items here.
Paul, we have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is from David. So I will unmute David. And the question is, can you make the initial status on save drop-down field default to ordered?
Yes. Yes. If I wanted to do that on this one, I would just come up to here and say ordered. And then when I say save that, which is kind of where I'm at right now, save it as a purchase order. I need to get an expected date.
Under totals notes.
The top tab, Paul, next to vendor. Where it's items, vendor, and then totals notes, right there.
Sorry. So now we've saved it. And if we preview this, see what it looks like. Here's the purchase order. We've ordered these two. I put in the note item there, and it says that it's been ordered. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes. You have the three choices, and it depends on what your process is. But if you're going to go straight to the ordering, that's perfectly fine.
So it'll default to whatever you've saved your previous purchase order as. Like whenever you create your next purchase order, will it automatically say ordered?
I do not think so, but I'm not positive of that. You can set the initial, like in a regular order, you can set the initial. The status is always fixed, and you can assign a station that's always fixed. I don't know without digging if that similar thing where you can set the default at the template level, so to speak, that says I'm just automatically going to use ordered. I don't know for sure.
So there's a possibility I would have to go into the purchase order template and set it up as a default field.
Yeah, you'd have to go in to, let me close this and come up to setup. Yeah, I would suggest that you raise that on one of the other webinars where it's a Q&A format.
Sure.
So I'd rather not try to dig here with that when I'm not certain. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep. All right, let me clear some of this out here. So now the life cycle of and this kind of ties with what we were just talking about, understanding the life cycle and the process flow. And this is where it depends on what your process, how you want your process to work. So a purchase order, they have statuses just like estimates and in orders do. Purchase orders have statuses. Purchase orders have statuses upon initial purchasing, a PO saving. So if we look at the this purchase order here, its status was that it was requested. If I had saved the other one, it would have showed that it had been ordered. These statuses, that just like an order, they go to closed when they're all done. So if you were progressing this through and started with the requested process, then the next step in that life cycle would be perhaps that it had been approved. The next step might be that it had been actually ordered. But in the conversation that we just had, we went straight to the ordered. Then the next status might be that it has been received, which means that you probably got the billing, the shipment came, it might have had a packing slip in it, and you would change the status that you have received it. And then by, right after that, it goes to, to closed. And that's what these are showing. So just like an estimate or an order, it's going to go through its own life cycle. So purchase order statuses, that's what we're talking about. They're approved, order received, and closed. So if we're in an Explorer here, if we look at this one and come on. You can change statuses. As I said, you go to approved or ordered, received. You can cancel a PO. You can reject a PO. Now, what's really important, if you're not using the inventory module, if you're not using the accounting module, if you order a purchase order, ordered 10 sheets of something, and you only got 5 of them, you can't do a partial receipt of just the 5. You would actually have to edit the PO and change the quantity from 10 to 5, and then receive those 5. And if the remainder are still in essence on order, create a second purchase order for the remaining ones. If you're not using the accounting module, paying a bill for materials that you purchased implies that you're handling that outside of control. You're handling the payment of vendors through your general ledger, and rather than through control. So the payment side is not a factor without the accounting module. Okay, so I've got here I want to look at this first one, this number 15. Says that we ordered these. You've got the Explorer purchase orders. You've got the same kind of thing that you do with orders and estimates. You've got search criteria, so you can search based on the PO number. You can search based on the vendor, and then these are the statuses. So you can search on the difference based on the statuses, and then you have the same choices or similar choices here regarding the historical side of the time range. Change in the status. To received. Now, if we look at that purchase order, we notice now we had ordered 2, and we've now received 2. And there's nothing additional that's pending. It says that not only did we receive the 2 of the vinyl, 2 rolls, but we also received the 5 sheets. And this is where I commented that that you for partial receipts, you have to action. You're not using the accounting module. You have to edit the PO itself. Now I'm kind of skipping forward here just a second. I want to now talk a little bit about the part usage and how things get pulled from inventory. Not yet from the. I'm going to look at an order here.
Paul, we do have a question on the receiving document. Were you going to do that on Thursday, or is that going to be today?
Actually, I was not going to comment on the receiving documents. We can handle it on Thursday. Give me the question, because I wasn't going to cover it.
Troy,
Hey,
I unmuted you.
Hey, Paul, I just had a question when you were saying that you had to recreate a PO on a partial shipment. We've been using receiving docs, but if you use that, does that not take it out of inventory? Is that why we're not covering it, or just curious about that?
I think of receiving docs, and I may be dead wrong. I think of the receiving docs as being more closely aligned to the, to the accounting. But I may be completely wrong. Again, I would suggest that you take that question directly to the one of the Q&A webinars, rather than try to.
Is that 1 o'clock Central today?
I'm not sure.
Yes, that's correct.
Is it 1? I would take that question directly there.
Will do. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Sorry. I'm going to look at this one. If we look, actually, I'm going to look at a different one here. Just a second. 90. This is a order that I had created a while back, and if I open it up, trying to get my bearings right here, just select. Hang on a second. Okay, this, if I look at that order, I was using, take a different one here just a second. I want to find what the material is that I was using. It's digital print, that's vinyl. Mounting, there we go. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. So I'm looking at foam core, that order 1090 that I just looked at, said that it needed one sheet. So the cost is 60. It's a unit. Says that we've billed, we've received, we have 5 on hand and received the 1. And now after this order, we've got 4 that are remaining, okay? So this is how you go back to that first question that came up, the advantage of the inventory is that as the order gets placed, it begins to influence the inventory level. And if it's in WIP, it basically it says that I'm reserving it, and then when it's completed, then it's going to go out the door, and it's not going to be reserved, but it's going to be consumed. Okay, so let's look at that order again and change the status to sale. Okay, so now if we go back and look at the inventory on it, I want to make sure that it's no longer reserved, and it's brought our inventory from 6 that it started, down to 5. So as it goes through it when it's in the WIP and the built status, it's basically reserved at that point. And once you take it as an order, then it's going to be consumed. But here you have to get into the use of the part usage. So if I go into, I'm going to go to dashboards, up here in the top left, dashboards, part usage. And here I want to put in the order number 1090. And here I can look at all of the different things related to that, whether it's labor, whether it's equipment. So if I wanted to put in here that we mounting, slide down, choose the foam core. Now I can adjust if we, for some reason, if we consumed looking for the quantity where it said how many it used. What I was going to get at and try to show you was that if you actually, if it used, if you said it needed, if the system said it needed one, but for some reason you needed two of them because of a redo, when you get into the part usage, you can adjust that part usage to reflect that that you actually use two rather than what was designated. That's what I was trying to illustrate, but I'm not seeing. It could be because I changed it to a sale before I updated the part usage. So you can, the part usage is going to help you say, I really used X instead of Y if they're different, okay? Linda, I'm going to try to digest a little bit more of this on Thursday. I want to wrap up so we can finish on time. I want to finish
Okay.
up with some of the report stuff.
Okay.
The reports that I think are the most relevant, if you go up to production and then stockroom manager, and if you start expanding these, particularly the you can see in kind of in a very condensed form for the different parts that are in the warehouse, how many you have available, how many are being reserved, so to speak, for orders, and how many more you're expecting to to come in, and what the unit of measure is. So I think this production in the stock room is an excellent way of kind of seeing in a very condensed way the your inventory levels. Then under reports, there's a boatload of reports that are related to parts and inventory. So I went to reports, parts and inventory, and this is the whole list. There's a lot of them in there. Usage probably would represent one of the ones that I would particularly pay attention to, or you can look at it at the part, by category, by order, by station, what's in the warehouse. Lists. This is the one that's kind of related to the to creating the catalogs. So you can look at it from a catalog standpoint and do a preview. So this shows that for this particular vendor, CyrSkills, this is what their catalog looks like. And here you're getting more of a feel of just what those parts are and what their current catalog pricing is. There are others that might be. I think I would encourage you to just when you to browse through. If you're using the inventory, just go to the parts and inventory, and then explore. Some of these. The inventory history might be of interest. Inventory status might be of interest. Build parts by vendor. I perceive it more in the context of the accounting, with accounting being involved. This one is not important unless you're using the accounting. This one is a PO report by vendor. With limited data, I'm just looking at everything. This is a purchased parts by vendor. So again, I'm only have the one vendor and what has been ordered at different times. I will try to dust off some of my notes, particularly on the part usage, and see if we can't touch a little bit more on that on Thursday. But I want to make sure that we also have adequate time to cover the putting stuff into finished goods and then pulling it out, which is the main focus of Thursday's session. Any last minute questions?
No questions, Paul.
All right.
Wait. We have a question.
Okay.
It's from Troy. I'm going to unmute you.
Hey, Paul, Troy again. My one question is, if we haven't started inventory from day one, how can we kind of build up our inventory library and then start using POs so it kind of just adds to it?
That's an excellent question. Quite frankly, I hadn't thought about it. I honestly don't know, Troy. It's kind of like, in an accounting sense, it's like setting up starting balances. I will try to look at that between now and Thursday, but I would also encourage you to pose that startup question, to that 1 o'clock web Q&A stuff.
Sure.
I'll try to research it first, maybe comment on it Thursday, but I would encourage you to reach out to them. It's an excellent question in the context of you're starting up and you want to get your starting balances
correct.
Correct. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paul.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.